to me. Every day, I long deep inside of me. Every day, I long for what's plain to see. Every day, I long to be with you. Every day, I long for the truth. Just getting on falling in love with you. More with everything you do. Speak out of mountains, tremble with fear. And at the sound of your voice, know you are near, be near to me. And the rain falls like tears, and most days I cry, but facing my fears, the truth I won't deny. Just can't help falling in love with you. More than every little thing you do. Speak out of mountains, travel with you. And at the sound of your voice, know you are near. Just can't help falling in love with you. More than every little thing you do. Speak out of mountains, travel with you. And at the sound of your voice, know you are near, be near to me.
This, and then I press that.
Every time we go live, the first thing people hear is, I transition to this, I transition to that.
I said we were going live.
Did your wife come running?
Did you call me? No, I was just
Did
saying
you call me?
that we went live. So, hello, Mr. Can
Hello.
Talk,
Sort of.
sort of. So I made a new one for you.
Yeah, this is where you throw up my title.
Yep.
Pastor
Pastor
can't talk right.
So, since you can talk a little, you're just a little muckmouth. Not muckmouth. What was his name?
Muckmouth?
What was his name? The guy on the Bill Cosby show who couldn't talk right.
I don't know what you're talking about.
He would say things like "OBKB."
OBKB?
Yeah, like the Fat Albert show. Never mind.
I don't know to which character you are referring.
I don't know his name. I'm sad.
I don't
can't
either.
remember. Not like you could find Bill Cosby stuff anywhere anymore.
No,
So
that's persona non grata. You can't search that no more.
can't search that no more.
Mm.
I know it's the Fat Albert show, Biggs, but I can't remember. I can't remember the name of the character that
Was it Lampshade?
I don't know.
That's the only character I remember from Fat Albert other than Albert.
Who's Albert?
Albert was the big fat guy, the main character
M-
in Fat Albert
His name
show.
was actually Mumbles? No, his name couldn't have been Mumbles.
There
Please
was a
tell me.
Mumbles. There was a Mumbles in the Lost Boys.
Okay. I'm not going to argue with him, but I just.
What's up, Biggs? How you
So,
doing, man?
would you like to tell everyone how everything has been? Pastor can't talk, right?
It's been painful.
Yep.
Yeah, they ripped all the teeth out, and that was super painful. And I got these temporary dentures so that I can smile. And now I've got to learn how to talk with
So,
super thick dentures in my mouth.
quick question.
What's up?
As you're learning to talk, you know the best way to master speaking again, don't you?
Stop telling me to do tongue twisters.
It's the best way to learn to speak.
Okay, I'll do them when we're not on camera.
You-
Where you can't record me and then play it back.
I'm not.
To
I
laugh
can't
at.
record. I can't record now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. No, I really can't. I'd mess up the setup. If I press record right now, it would take us offline because it would change it to recording as opposed to line.
Yes, Biggs, I do. I need to practice reading out loud. It says on Twitch. The problem is my gums are still healing, so I can't really
That's 2
I can't wear
votes.
them all the time yet. You know? Oh my gosh. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, how many pickled peppers did Peter Piper pick?
See? Was that so hard? Wasn't that bad?
Sally sells seashells by the seashore.
Okay, that one's terrible.
Sally sells seashells by the seashore.
All right. So now that that's out of the way, and I'm a happy person.
Yep.
Anything big happen in your week other than
Other than getting my
temporary dentures? Yeah.
temporary dentures in, no, I guess not.
When do the permanents come in?
Well, I can't even get fitted for the permanents until at least 6 weeks from when I had my teeth pulled.
Oh.
So we're still a good 5 weeks out from even being able to go in and get impressions.
Does that mean I have to do the big faceness for another 5 weeks?
Well, that's what I said. I need to learn how to re-talk with these so that I can take back over.
Being big face stresses me out a lot.
Does it? Having a big face stresses? I mean, you'd think you'd be used to having a big face by now, but...
No, being the big face is what I
Oh,
said.
being the big
Mhm,
face.
mhm.
Oh. I see what you're
I
saying
got some
now.
big words for you that I
Yeah?
get yelled at when I use. Yeah. You want to hear them?
Like, defenestrate?
No. Like biblical donkey.
Like biblical donkey. Oh, man, that's funny.
The thing that God told Abraham he had to do surgery on.
That has nothing to do with the biblical donkey, but
No,
I guess
that's another long thing.
that's
that,
another thing.
yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. What about you? How was your week?
It was pretty good. Work's a little crazy right now. It's first of the year, so it's planning everything we're gonna do for the next year, which is a little crazy. And so that's going on, and then I think I said this last week. Did I say what I did last week that I wasn't going to do, and then I did?
I don't remember.
I started playing World of Warcraft again.
Oh, yeah.
So
Sorry
that
about
was a big part of my week. And I had originally my fidget spinner is the center thing is not acting right.
I don't know.
This is the one my wife got me for. The center pin isn't a snap; it's actually a screw, which is better, unless you happen to spin the wrong side and not hold them both when you spin, and then it
Uh-oh.
just spins off, and you're like, ah! And
Ah!
that happened like right here. um,
Runaway spinnet finner.
yeah.
What?
What?
Fidget finner?
Huh? Still not right. You want to try one more time?
Fidget spinner.
There you go.
I spoonerized the words.
You did what?
Spoonerized. Spoonerism. A spoonerism is when you switch the first letter of two different words. Like when you say tuck the frills instead of the other thing around. Anyway.
Frill the tucks?
No.
Tuck the frills. Frill the tucks.
No. Anyway, go on.
Tuck the frills. Tuck frills.
You can stop trying to put out on camera now.
Gotcha! Ha! So that was pretty good. And then I did something that I tried to do with Final Fantasy XIV, and it didn't quite work out how I would plan with WoW, which is allow Rain to be able to play. With Final Fantasy XIV, it's a little bit of a complex game. It's actually, the Final Fantasy saga is made in Japan, and I gotta turn this off. It's actually distracting me. Cause
I wondered if you were going to leave that there all night or not.
It's getting on my nerves. The Final Fantasy XIV is designed in Japan, of course, by an all-Japanese group. And the Japanese play games a little different than Americans. Asian games are a lot different than American games. And people don't really realize that 100% based on some of the Japanese games people play. They're like, oh, the Japanese games they're cutesy and they're this and they're that. But like a lot of them are hard. And like the director with the most recent expansion, he actually his name's Yoshi P, and someone was talking to him and they're like, how's the new raid? Cuz he actually plays a black mage in it. And he's like, well, it's interesting, and good luck on the last boss. Everyone was like, do what? Because like he's like the top 3% of black mages in the world when you start looking at parses, which is how many minute actions per second, and doing everything correctly. And he was just like, good luck. It's hard. And you're like, no, you don't get to say that. You're extremely good at the game.
You're not allowed to tell us that it's hard.
I'm bad at the game. And so that's like the level of game that it is. And so Zoe struggled with it a little. I struggled with it a lot, so it made sense. But I started playing WoW again, and I was sitting there playing it and thinking about it, and I was like, this is a cakewalk. I love playing this. This is relaxing comparatively to, the high stress of playing the other. And I'm like, I bet Zoe could play this. And so I was sitting there thinking about it, and I was like, let's get her signed up. And so I got her signed up, and Rain's just absolutely loving it because she's just having no issues. A little bit of confusion just because, there's the whole, what do I do now? Did you read the quest? Did you read? I accepted the quest. That's not what I asked.
You have to read it, or you won't know what to do.
And then she'll be like, oh. And then there are some things that are just not intuitive, and so you're like, oh, you should do this, because it's not intuitive.
Yeah.
Because it's things that are built into games that have been built into games since games were games. And so it's things like, right click versus left click. Well, what does it do? Well, we all know what they do. Unless you're a Mac user, and then sorry. That was rude. Um, they have dual function mouses now. Um, so that was another part of my week is starting to balance her ability and time with that. So like yesterday she did some of that, and then she played Among Us with your family, um, our extended family, I should say. Um, and so that was fun. So it's good. It was kind of my whole week, and then I think that was it.
Hmm. Okay.
I
Okay.
remembered how to cook something I haven't cooked in years, and I was just like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And then I went, oh, I can do this. And then I ate it and was like, did I forget about this dish? How did I forget about this dish? You know, so that was funny. That's happened to me twice since I've been back in Tennessee. Once with my mom and once just like standing in the kitchen, and I'm like, how have I not cooked this in 10 years? But
Just
I
all
was,
of a sudden memories come back and you're
yeah,
like, whoa.
well, because I don't like cold sandwiches. I don't like cold sandwiches. Let me rephrase that. I don't like cold sandwiches on white bread, like traditional white bread, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like I'll do uh, cooked roast beef, like boil the roast beef with salt, pepper, not salt. There's already too much salt in it. Pepper, garlic, onion, things like that. Are you frozen? Did you get disconnected?
Yeah, I'm still here, but
Okay.
it looks like all the video is frozen that I'm receiving. So yeah, it must be frozen.
It'll catch up in a sec. Okay.
Yeah.
So and
But I can hear you.
I'll
So.
put that over a potato, or I'll put that in places. Um, and then I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, you know what I really want? I really want like a cheesesteak. We don't have any. I could just cut up the roast beef into small pieces and then cook that with garlic and onion. I used to do this all the time. Why haven't I been doing this? And then like
Yeah.
my oldest girl, who doesn't eat um, uh, roast beef, doesn't like roast beef. I don't eat roast beef sandwiches, right? And she had a bite of my sandwich and she's like, oh. I was like, okay, you don't like cold roast beef.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was funny because I forgot about a whole meal that I used to make all the time. Because
Yeah.
so I just fried it in a pan, and not fry, but cooked it in a pan, and because I don't like uncooked. I don't like cold meat. It gets
Mm.
on my nerves. But
Yeah. All right.
how has your food intake been? Speaking of eating.
As the gums heal more, I can have, better food and less liquid foods. So, I've been able to fry up some potatoes more. Um,
like
uh,
like
I've
like
been able to eat some,
like fried potatoes, like you've cut up a potato, or like made mashed potatoes and then fried those.
no, like I've cut up a potato and fried
Okay.
it
Okay.
in
Because
oil and
both
with
are
salt.
good. Potato cakes are good. I was just trying to make sure.
Yeah.
You are in the country, so you guys do that. Make those.
And I had a peanut butter sandwich the other day. That was good. I was able to chew that. Biscuits soaked in butter. Can eat that.
Wouldn't you soak them in
So,
gravy?
I don't like gravy. But
30
that's just
second
me.
buffer. 30
Oh
second
my
buffer.
gosh.
Memes is out.
You don't tell somebody from Tennessee you don't like gravy. That's just unconscionable. You don't do that.
I was born in the North, raised in the South, and lived 18 years in Texas. You don't like what? Boy, go sit down.
Yeah, I don't like. So my mom used to make this thing called chocolate gravy, chocolate gravy, and I like that. It's basically just gravy, and it's got cocoa powder in it.
like
So
like
it's
biscuit,
good.
like Sausage gravy or like beef gravy?
I don't. What's the difference?
So your beef gravy is like your brown gravy. Your turkey gravy is like that turkey-ish white gravy, and then your sausage gravy is that thick white gravy that usually has some sausage in it.
I'm
Gravy's
guessing just
important.
the thick white gravy, but without the sausage in it.
And okay, that actually isn't terrible. That's water, flour,
And
and
basically, you're
cocoa
making
powder.
glue, and then you put cocoa powder in it.
Water and flour. Yeah.
Yep. Some lard is
Yeah.
it's good in there.
Butter or
Kinda,
lard. Yeah. Yeah.
and then you butter the biscuits, and you just kind of lay them out on the plate, and put the chocolate gravy over top of them, and it's this delicious
Yeah, that's okay.
chocolatey treat.
I was thinking
Uh,
like starting with actual gravy and then going. I'm like,
No, not the gravy you're talking about. No.
You're taking white turkey gravy and adding chocolate? I need to talk to your mama.
You
She
talk to your
broke
mama.
something.
Something has gone wrong here.
She from Texas, but woof. Okay. Well, we're 20 minutes in. I like you being able to talk. I'm just gonna throw that out there because
Yeah.
we haven't actually talked in 3 weeks.
What limited talkability I have.
Your talkability is okay. I just don't know how sore you're gonna be when we're done with this.
Well, I've been taking it easy on the gums all day, and I made sure I took some ibuprofen and Tylenol about 20 minutes before we started our phone call. So
Okay.
I should be good.
Okay. So, on topic now. Here we go.
All right.
They serve that at Farm Fresh? Really? Farm Fresh, you would really like Farm Fresh. Farm Fresh is a buffet, but it's like a country buffet. So it's just like country food. So you got your greens, you got cornbread, you got like different kinds of pudding. It's not Cisco made. It's homemade food.
Mm.
And it is good. And I eat too much and it makes me sick. Zoe loves their fried chicken. Anyway, okay. Now this jerk's talking about Farm Fresh in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Now I'm hungry and all I had was fish sticks. They got good fish and chips. Yeah, they fry the.
Yeah, I haven't had dinner yet. I wanted to wait until after so that everything would be fresh in my mouth,
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I'm hungry too. I had like 6 thingies. All right, so Beaver Biggs is trying to get us on track. Tithing,
Right?
Yeah. Episode
He's
3.
like, tithe.
3.
Let's talk about tithing now.
Season 3, episode 12. We're talking about tithing. So we did this crazy thing
Crazy.
where we started in the Old Testament first. So we started in Malachi 3, verse 10. And in the CSB it reads, bring in the full tenth into the storehouse so that there may be food in my house. And my house is the church, his house. And he continues to say, test me in this way, says the Lord of armies. See if I will not open the floodgates of heaven and pour out a blessing for you without measure. I will rebuke the devourer for you so that it will not ruin the produce of your land and your wine in your field and will not fail to produce fruit, says the Lord of armies. Then all the nations will consider you fortunate, for you will be a delightful land, says the Lord of armies. So, the first thing that we kind of see here is the word tenth instead of tithe. Well, that one's easy. Do you want to explain why that's easy, Pastor Bill, or would you like me to?
Give me a second here.
What? Did I read something wrong?
No.
Oh. Then why do you need a second?
All right. So the CSB translates it as tenth, and the King James Version says the tithes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we understand these to be the same word. But in the Hebrew, the actual phrase there is ma'asar, ma'asr, ma'asra. Okay, and the idea originally was to bring an offering of something that you can carry on your shoulders. Okay, so basically they would say, you've got this big crop, we're not going to make you do math, just whatever you can carry on your shoulders. So we want to make sure that we're not unduly burdening someone. We want to make sure that what we're saying belongs to God is something that's easy for you to bring. So the original idea was it should be something that you can easily put on your shoulders and bring to God. And then as industry, you know, changed, and as less people became farmers and yada yada yada, even up until the time of Malachi, it changed from being this shoulder offering into being this, well, now we're going to call it the 10th. We're going to call it a 10th of what you have. And so it really is this word, this idea that over 4,000 years kind of changed from, I'm just looking for an easy show of dedication, to then later they really defined what that minimum show of dedication is.
Mm-hmm.
And it was defined as 1/10 of your increase. So whatever you brought in, 1/10 of that should be given to the Lord. And that's the minimum identified. Well, this shouldn't be a burden to you. This is what belongs to the Lord. And so that's kind of what I wanted to say about that word there, the 10th or the tithe word.
Now, real quick, as a side note, Biggs, what do you mean wrong lesson? Did you listen to the wrong lesson again? Or am I crazy? Pastor Bill, am I crazy?
No, we're supposed to be talking about tithing.
Okay. Because I definitely see what you mean when you're talking about one you recorded a while ago and you've already recorded a new one and you're thinking about the next one. And
your brain's like,
it's rough.
Switching gears, and you're all like, I think Biggs may have been saying that he thought I had studied the wrong lesson, and that's why I was asking for a minute. But what I was doing,
okay.
I was saying all the time, I was pulling up the verse in eSword so that I could go back to the original word to just follow through with my train of thought to make sure that I was actually on track with what I was thinking.
Yeah, and it's good. So that's the first thing, and in Malachi, tithe means 10th, which is why both the things translate it different. But of course, the original idea, like if you go back all the way to Adam, not Adam. Well, technically Adam, but if you go all the way back to the two sons, Cain and Abel, there wasn't a bring 10%. It was bring first fruits, bring, there were different. And if you think about it, at that time there wasn't money, so it was kind of just like, bring what you can because you're just you, and then money changes things because all of a sudden you're not just feeding your family. You might own a business. You might own a, so life changes a lot, like you said, with industries. So, the second thing that I wanted to glean from Malachi 3 was that we see a promise that God will pour out blessings from heaven to you. And I want to be clear, and I said it in the podcast, blessings does not mean just money back. A blessing from heaven can mean a lot of different things. And then I liked the thing that I said, that God ain't no high yield savings account. Because that's not how it works. There are some people who have taught in the past, and still do, give to the Lord and you'll be blessed financially. Which, not what that says. It
It's
says,
very rare for you to be blessed financially
yeah.
based off of your giving. That's just not. It's not a standard that you can, bank on. That's just not how it works.
Now, does God provide? Yes. So if you give a lot, does God provide? A lot of times, yes. So there's certain teachings that are, but that there are. It is not a one for one. It's not like, hey, if I give God 10, He'll give me 12. That's especially if that's the attitude you're going into it with. That's never gonna work.
Mm-mm.
Um, Lastly, and I think is the most important, because this last part to me causes some of the misunderstandings and misaligning of the previous part. Lastly, we see that one of the blessings from heaven is that He'll rebuke the devourer. And it doesn't really define devourer there, other than just the word akal, which is not correct because I don't speak correctly. But it's ah. The pronunciation is ahkal, which is literally to eat. So that's why
I'll
they
call.
use devourer. Um, Now this could mean several things. It could be spiritual forces, bad times, famine, something that's going to eat your stuff. Um,
Hmm.
that it won't ruin the produce of your land and your vine will continue to it's so those it can mean a lot of things. Um, a lot of people have said, and that's why I say that's an important part, because in that outward showing of tithing, which shouldn't be an outward showing, let me rephrase that, because you shouldn't, if you're being showy about tithing, we have a problem. Um,
Yeah.
the the action of doing it and showing God that you are putting Him first, that step, um, you're showing to God, not showing to man. Um, God then says He'll rebuke the devourer, and for me, that's real important to me, because I want God to protect me from whatever might be literally trying to eat me, my family, or my stuff, because
Yeah.
and I think a lot of times that's why people line up if I give to God, He gives me things. And a lot of times it's like, not really. God is pouring out a blessing, which can mean many things, but He's rebuking the devourer on your behalf, which sometimes then leads to benefits that you wouldn't have had if you hadn't had the rebuke. But it's not about the rebuke. You're not supposed to give to get the blessing, but you're supposed to give, and there will always be a blessing. And Biggs said one of the best examples is locusts, and locusts is a very good example because they just eat everything. Now, anything you want to say on that verse before we do something even crazier than starting in the Old Testament?
No.
Okay. So now we're going to do something even crazier than starting in the Old Testament. We're actually going to jump back to Malachi 2, 8, and 9, which is the verses directly in front of 10 through 12, which says, starting in verse 8, "Will a man rob God, yet you're robbing me? How do we rob you, you ask? By not making the payment of the tenth and the contributions. You are suffering under a curse, yet..." Oop, oop, oop. I detached. "You are suffering under a curse, yet you, the whole nation, are still robbing me." Now, these are some pretty harsh words that are used here. You're robbing me. But we got to look at it in twofold. One, you're robbing him because he said, do this, and you're not doing it. He said the first fruits belong to God. So not giving him those first fruits is robbery because he said they belong to him. But the other part is, at that time, the priests, their family, the whole Levitical thing, they lived off of what was given to the temple, and the synagogues, and etc., etc. The local church is how we would look at it. So, if people weren't giving, the people that were serving God weren't eating, or had to go out and get a job that they shouldn't have in order to provide for their family.
Which is normal for a lot of churches now.
Yes.
And always will be as long as the IRS exists.
Yes and no.
If a church pays 100% of the tithe to the pastors, the IRS will shut them down.
No.
I call them a for-profit business.
Right. Which is why you shouldn't be taking the full tenth. No. But even back then, they didn't take the full tenth because a lot of it went to running the actual temple as well, buying the things that were needed that weren't given, keeping it up, things like that. And all the outreaches that they did, because back then, the church helped provide for widows, they helped provide for orphans, they did all these things that we don't do as the modern church and should be. But that's another story for a different podcast. So, looking at it, like Pastor Bill just said, a large part of that is still true to a certain point, because pastors nowadays in a lot of churches, especially smaller churches, I've been involved in a lot throughout the years. When my dad was a youth pastor, he had a full-time job. Bill, you've done lots of work throughout. Now you're kind of a stay-at-home dad, and Roxanne works. But in the ideal situation, in my opinion, who receives nothing from the church, let's be clear, in my opinion, the ideal situation would be that our pastors and our teachers and our ministry workers and all of those things wouldn't have to hold second jobs because we would be providing for them. And in the ideal world, we wouldn't need orphanages, we wouldn't need poorhouses, we wouldn't need, because the church should be meeting a lot of those needs. Now we're going to talk about why it can't work currently. Sadly, according to current research, only about 10 to 25%, depending on the church or organization, are giving to that church or organization. Only 5% of Christians are actually tithing. And of those, 80% of Americans that give anything, that are Christians in America, only give 2%. Now that seems really low, but I can make it sound even worse. During the Great Depression, Americans on average gave 3.3%. Now, I want to be clear. I didn't go over this on the podcast as hard as I'm about to. But if people were waiting in line for food and living on the street as a whole society, except for, certain people, and they were still giving to the church, That's all I'm saying. Because it doesn't make sense that we, as the most prosperous nation in the world, can't fund our local churches. We constantly see churches having to share buildings, do money drives to, fix the carpet. I've been in churches where our seats have no padding. We're literally sitting on the floor. we gotta buy some more chairs. Let's take up an offering to buy chairs. What? There should be no reason for this. Now, again, I know the Ecclesian House does not beg for money. This is not coming from this standpoint. Pastor Bill does not even like that I take this farther than him. He said I had to talk about tithing, and inside I got giddy with joy. And he looked at me and was like, but be nice. I was like, no, it's not happening. I won't cuss though. I've done that once before in talking about things like this, and so I won't. I've tried really hard not to say how I truly feel about a lot of the American Christians that we currently know, and sadly, because God tells us to, we have to love. So because of that, if we as a whole, as a capital C church, if we tithe, now again, I go back to what Bill said, you know, the tenth is what is laid out based on lots of factors in the Old Testament. I'm not saying everyone has to give 10% for all time, at all moments, because 10% is not always enough. Some people decide to give more than 10%. If you literally aren't eating, you fall into that category of the poor and suffering. If you can't eat because you've cut everything out, you shouldn't. You don't have to tithe because you're one of those people the church should be helping, not vice versa. But when you are able to, everyone should tithe. Now, 10% is 10%. There are times where, personally, and Tina can attest to this because she sometimes is a little got on to me when we were younger, married, about this. Even when we were so tight, we wondered how gas was going to be in the car the next day, we still tithed. Because I put that first. It's what Biggs and my mother taught me. You know, I tithe. Now, my tithe has not always gone to the exact church that I'm a member of. There are times it's funded youth groups. There's times it's funded startups of religious organizations. There's times it's done some different things other than just, you know, the church I attend on Sunday mornings because doing other things that I feel that the Holy Spirit has led me to do. But imagine if we all gave as the capital C church. We wouldn't have to worry about homelessness. We wouldn't have to worry about the church, who is supposed to, dictated by God, freezing? Frizzing? I don't know what that means, sir. Am I freezing? Is it cold outside? Anyway, focusing on the when we would be able to, the church is commanded to fix these problems. Take care of the poor, take care of the suffering, take care of the less fortunate, take care of the people in prison. A lot of modern churches can't because they don't even have the staff to be able to do it. I know of a church in DFW who has a food pantry. And when COVID hit and it started to get a little crazy, they started panicking a little because tithes went down, offerings went down because people lost their job. If you don't have an increase, you can't give on it. I mean, that's just a fact.
Basic math.
No one should expect, well, you have something. They got to eat. But when that happened, they started freaking out. And then all of a sudden, almost like from God, this guy, who's a very prominent businessman, went to the head of the food program and was like, what do you need to operate for 6 months? Like, what is your operating expenses for 6 months? And the person was like, oh, it's around this. Why? He goes, well, here's 6 months to get started. The food bank cannot close in this time. And it's my understanding he continued to give beyond that. I don't have the story of that, but I know the food bank didn't close. So someone did. But he stepped forward and was like, hey, look, this can't close because there's now more needy people than normal, so you can't cut off the people you're already helping. Oh, yes, he did. And Tina worked at that church, so that's why I know this story. So Zadie commented yes he did. So he did continue to support that. And that's one person. One person God laid on his heart to take care of that, which wouldn't have been now I know I'm speaking for God and this is wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway because I get fired up about this. If everyone had been doing what they were supposed to be doing from the beginning, it wouldn't have even been a question of do you have enough to run for the next 6 months. It wouldn't have been a question.
Yeah.
It would have been, all right, cool, we're still good. But because now, I say that not all situations are exactly the same. There are some churches where the people are on fire and they are, as a collective whole, at a higher percentage giving than other churches. Those churches, a lot of times, are the ones able to do things like we just talked about. They're able to help with the outreaches. They're able to help give away Bibles for free to, 2.5 billion downloads Life.Church has done. We had the 25-year service last week, and so they said how many people have downloaded the Bible app from Life Church how many devices over the course of, and it's something like more than there's people on the earth, and you're like, what the? Because multiple people have downloaded on multiple devices, but it's a crazy number, and because a group of people continue to do what they're called to do, commanded to do. Now, I know we started in the old. Before I move to the next thing, do you want to say anything? I know you don't like talking about this very much because you're a pastor and blah blah blah, and you don't like to guilt people, and I don't either. But I'm meaner than you are. So, now we're gonna move out of the Old Testament and go to the New, because a lot of people pull the whole, well, that was Old Testament, and in the New Testament we don't have to follow that, so we don't have to give to the local church. See previous rant, but we'll continue on. So if we move to the New Testament, if we look at 1 Corinthians 16:2 and 3, Paul's writing to the church at Corinth, hence we're looking at Corinthians, and he's writing about the fact that he's coming soon to the church. And he says, on the first day of the week, each of you is to set something aside and save, in keeping with how he is prospering. So that
Wait. Read that again.
On
in
the
keeping with what?
How he is prospering.
Oh.
What? Why?
Sounds like tithing to me.
Oh, yeah. So, I was like, why are you stopping me? Did I say it wrong again? Like, I got reading issues. You can't stop me mid-sentence.
Sorry, man. Sorry.
Where am I? So that no collections will be needed to be made when I come. So, when we look at this, I see a couple things. One is a point that Bill always makes. Pastor Bill's great at making this point, and I love him for it, even when I disagree to some degree, because... But, Paul here, doesn't want an offering being taken up when he's there. He doesn't want to preach and then someone feel the move of the Holy Spirit, not the move of the Holy Spirit, the guilt of the fact that they just heard a good sermon, and for them to give. Now, there are times the Holy Spirit moves and says, give more, and you pull out your checkbook and you give. Who uses a checkbook? You get on an app and you press some buttons and you give more. No one uses a checkbook. Biggs doesn't even use a checkbook, and he's old as dirt. So, when we look at that, he doesn't want an offering taken. He doesn't want to guilt people into... that. He doesn't want people to feel guilty and give, because so often that happens. He wants people to set aside the money they would pay him and what they would give to the church, because that's just what you're supposed to do. As Christians, we should be giving off of our increase, which is another big thing, off of the increase. Not, like I mentioned before, not, hey, let's say I work at Pizza Hut and I made negative money this week. It was more in gas to drive around than I brought home no money. So what do I have to tithe on? Nothing. You brought home no
Nothing.
money. Um,
Yeah, there was no increase.
and I'm
There
not
was no
using that example
prospering.
as anyone I know that works at Pizza Hut currently. Just it's the first thing that came to my mind. Um, not pointing out anyone I've had conversations with. But that's something that's real important. There is we shouldn't be giving it as a feeling. There are some churches, and again, Pastor Bill's nice, so he doesn't say things like this. I'm not nice. So I don't even use my real name on the internet. Um, the, there are churches out there that start the offering part, and they call people to the front to give the offering, and like guilt people because not enough people are coming forward, and it becomes a show that, ooh, I went forward, I gave something. That's not what Paul teaches here. That's not what is taught
That's dirty.
above. That is
That's
guilt.
extortion.
It's extortion. It's not the way. Now I'm not going to name churches because that's wrong. But I'm looking at you and you know it. Like you know the people who you is. Stop it. But an example that we use often because we both really, really like him, Craig Rochelle and Life Church. He actually last week, this week, I slept in, I didn't go to church this week. I'm at church right now, but I didn't go to morning service. So, anyway. He told the story of something they always say and how it happened. So, one thing Life Church always says during the offering, at every that hasn't happened in many years. Shh. I am not an enforcer anymore, mostly. Anyway, many years ago, when they first started, one of their first services, he saw a homeless person, what he thought was a homeless person, he later confirmed it, in the crowd. And this is when the church was still very small, under 100 people. They were meeting in a bicycle garage, I think is what it was, like a bicycle factory, and they met in like the loading garage and borrowed the speaker, and normal startup stuff that happens, like meeting at a Mexican restaurant. Um, and so he saw a homeless person, and he felt the Holy Spirit be like, hey, not everyone can give. I don't remember the exact way he said it, okay, so don't quote me because he says it better. It's his story. And so he said, as the offering basket is passed, if you don't have food, if you don't have shelter, if you don't have basic human needs, as you see that come across, you reach in and take out as it passes. And like that was one thing at Life Church that freaked me out when I first heard it, because I was like, I'm thinking like, you know, all my business rules. Well, you can't give a tax deduction if you churches don't pay tax, but still you can't. You haven't tracked that because it's not technically the churches yet. But and you're thinking of all like the logistics of it, and it's just like they continue to do that right up until um, COVID, because now they no longer pass an offering because um, you know COVID. You can't all touch one thing. Like that's insane. Um, so they continued that for 24 years until COVID hit, and they said it at every one of the now 38 campuses of their small church-minded church. And I say that because that's one of their things is they reject the megachurch because they're individual groups, not one mega church. Um, and as Tina said, the first time we went, Zadie saying, you know, he said it, and I started freaking, having a mini breakdown in the aisle. And she's looking at me going, it's okay. That's a good thing. You would like that when you stop and think about it. And I'm like, but, legality. And she's like, they don't have it yet.
It's a logistical nightmare.
And I'm freaking out. Like, you know, you got to have them come to a pastor and sucks. And I'm like, wait, no, and now I really, really understand. It was because of one guy, and how many people have been affected throughout those, 25 years.
Yeah.
And they're very much, they're a church that we support. We really like them. And one of the things they do is local outreach, which does not mean just going out and doing whatever in the local sense. They give to local organizations, both Christian and non, that are food banks, and then they go and help and volunteer, showing that love that we've talked about in the past, the friendship style evangelism, because it's not important necessarily that it has to be a Christian organization, because you're doing the Lord's work either way. And if that's the best organization and the best well-tracked place in your area, if the Lord puts that on your heart, give to them. Doesn't matter.
It's like, it's one of the reasons why we involve ourselves in Dallas Pride,
Mm-hmm.
the organization, and don't really worry about the P's and Q's of, well, what did we get for every single dollar and blah, 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 because honestly, I would rather have, a living, thriving community that can receive the gospel than turning a blind eye and contributing to ever rising suicide rates in a community that needs the Lord just as much as everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I can step off my soapbox now.
Well, the new episode comes out in 6 minutes. And it is something. I don't remember.
It is about the Berean lifestyle.
Ah, the Berean lifestyle. That's right. And you wrote this one.
I wrote this one.
Just like you wrote the tithing one. So
this one is
good.
less heated. It's less an emotional strong point for me, but
and you went a little short, but that's okay.
I went
Not
a little
every
short.
podcast has to be the full 10 minutes.
I got a little heated with myself. Like, I actually added like a full paragraph during recording, which is why I had to send you the new script. Like, hey, I added a bunch of stuff because I read it, like recorded it, and was like, nah, I didn't like that, and like added a bunch of sentences, which those ones weren't edited by my wife. So, if words are wrong, sorry, y'all that gotta read that, because that was Nooms off the cuff, and that's a dangerous Nooms. But the Berean way of thinking is very important, especially in the modern days we live in. And I was a little short. I could have went longer, but it's going to be a very. Now I'm getting in trouble because I didn't tell my wife that I wrote a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, you are.
You didn't tell me you did that. Yeah, I know. Sorry. So that was I felt like if I went any longer, it would end up being 20 minutes instead of 10. It was one of those situations. Like, it's like you either get
So you cut it off at 6.
you get 6.5, or you probably would have got
20.
like 30, because I felt myself getting preachy, and I felt like those things that I got in trouble for doing at past churches coming out more, and I was like, I better not. Pastor Bill will be very upset if I start cussing at the audience.
I'd be like, can I get a retake? There was something wrong with this one.
This one didn't. The file was corrupted. Try again.
File with. There's these random, I don't know, weird sounds that keep coming up every once in a while. I don't know. I just need you to record it.
And at a certain point, you were
Record it
leaning into the camera and yelling, and I think there was something wrong with the. Try again.
That's funny. All right. Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
make sure you're tithing and go listen to tonight's podcast and
That's
you can,
true. Pastor. Woo. Grandpa. Oh, time for me to go bed. Biggs is right. We should get me one of those little buttons that does a high pitched beep, and I can put it on my desk, and I can just do whatever I want as we go through the and
beep
I can
button, huh?
I can press it and it'll just go bomb. You know, I wouldn't want like the regular beep. I would want something else like zoinks or something fun. You know.
That's funny.
Can you work on that, Pastor Bill? Can I get one of those?
A
Or
button?
will you not
A noise
enable
button?
me more than you? I'm not
That
gonna
would be
enable.
a rather enabling thing to do, wouldn't it?
It would be.
Bazinga! Your dad says.
Bonk. Foghorn.
All right.
Mm.
I
All
think
right.
we're gonna go to the 30-second buffer now.
I think
so.
we are. 30-second buffer. 30-second buffer.
30-second
30-second
buffer.
buffer.
30-second buffer. Has it been 30 seconds yet?
No. 30-second
30-second
buffer.
buffer.
30-second
30-second
buffer.
buffer.
30-second
30-second
buffer.
When will it gonna end?
Yes. Bagpipe noises every time I say a bad word. All right.
We love you. Have a good